Hello and welcome to a special panel discussion on augmenting infrastructure to boost India's growth story. Let me introduce you to my panelists. On my extreme right, Mr. Suhaimi Yaqub, Country President India for the SCOMI Group, Mr. S.K. Loya, OSD Urban Transport and Joint Secretary in the Ministry of Urban Development, Mr. S.K. Goel, very important man, Chairman and Managing Director, IIFCL, Dr. M. Ramachandran, Advisor Infrastructure to the UP Government, and Mr. Alwyn Keith Bowden, CEO Essar Projects. Gentlemen, welcome to this special panel discussion. Let's dive in straight away. Mr. Goel, first question for you. Every year we all watch the budget, we watch for infrastructure announcements, we watch for financial announcements. Every year we come away with a feeling of mild disappointment, saying yes, but not enough. Is it a question of money? Are we as a country simply lacking in the finance to build infrastructure?
As far as the recent budget is concerned, which Honorable Finance Minister presented in Parliament, I can say that from the infrastructure point of view, it is really a very good budget.
Okay.
All that people have been requesting from infrastructure sector have all been considered by the Honorable Finance Minister in this budget.
Okay.
Look to the FII limit into the corporate bonds. People felt that $5 billion is a very small portion, at least should be doubled. But FN has obliged much more than that by increasing the limit from $5 billion to $25 billion.
Okay.
So I think overall the budget has significantly, substantially focused on to the infrastructure.
All right.
And that is probably keeping in mind the target of $1 trillion to be spent into the 12th five-year plan, which in the independent India is the largest allocation to any single sector till now.
And that's almost the size of India's GDP currently.
Correct. That's right.
Very optimistic view from Mr. Goel. I'm going to throw the same question at Mr. Bowden. Mr. Bowden, there is this old cliche that India is a poor country. We just simply can't afford to do many things. What is your sense? Do we simply lack the money or the will to build infrastructure?
No, I don't think it's even been tested as yet, because the projects just aren't coming out.
Okay.
It's only when the projects start to come out that we'll know the real answer to this issue.
But we seem to be pouring a lot of money in. Why aren't the projects coming out?
There's a lot of mechanisms being put in place to allow a lot of money to be utilized.
Okay.
But the projects themselves are faltering for various reasons, and I think a lot of it is to do with the fact that you have to have everything in place, not just the financial ability. Okay. So you've got all your environmental issues, your land issues, all of these questions to sort out as well. But to return to that particular point, I think my sense of things is the projects that have come out so far, yes, there's enough money. The volume of projects stay at this rate, yes, there's enough money. The increase in volume of projects that is supposed to come, I would be concerned both on the equity side and the debt side. I suspect that on the equity side, the developer community is already quite stretched. Okay. And I have a sense that some of them may already be struggling with finding the equity for the projects they have to undertake at this point in time. On the debt side of things, the measures are being put in place, but the money's still coming basically from the same sources. These new sources haven't yet been tested. So I think it's, let's get some projects through the system and let's see what happens from there.
I'm going to go to my far right, Mr. Suhaimi Yaqub. On the political side, how would you rate an India risk? And if you were to invest in India, what are the risks that you would consider before investing in India?
Today, you would say that amongst a few, or if not many of the countries within the developing nation foothold, I would assume that India can be rated as one of the much stronger one for investors, or rather for foreign entities. Stronger
relative to?
Relative to, there are certain certainties that are there, even though it may not be in competency or in its required competency, but there are actually known facts and ways of doing things, requirements that are actually a norm as to how India does its so-called undertaking. I think if foreign investors or foreign companies for that matter invest into India and they do appreciate and understand these differences, they should not find it too difficult in order to maneuver inside this marketplace. Obviously, it is not an easy marketplace, but then again, usually any market outside your own country market is always something more complex than what you're used to.
Mr. Loya, I'm going to come to you now on the question of urban transport. It's a crying need for India. All political parties in agreement, all stakeholders in agreement, citizens are in agreement, the financiers are in agreement, and yet we don't see enough of it. In one simple answer, why? Why don't we see more public transport in India?
We'll have to look at the whole issue in a different perspective. It's not only a question of money. The subject of urban transport, if you look at the Constitution of India, does not exist as a subject.
Okay.
So there is a multiplicity of authorities across central government, state government, and the urban local bodies. So that whole thing makes it quite complex. That is number one. Number two, many times whatever solutions which we are thinking in terms of urban transport are simple engineering solutions. And urban transport is much beyond simple engineering. It is engineering, economics, land use, transport integration, psychology, behavior. So a lot of things will have to be taken together.
On that note, take a quick break. We'll see you on the other side. I'm going to bring in Dr. M. Ramchandran. Dr. Ramchandran, so $1 trillion required between 2012 and 2017, $1 trillion. Half of this is expected to come from private sources. In your view, is the private sector geared to contribute that kind of money into infrastructure? Do we have all the other systems that Mr. Bowden talked about? All the other pieces of the puzzle, are they in place?
I think we are on the right track. Again, if we take up the example of this particular budget, there are whole sorts of incentives or initiatives taken as far as infrastructure is concerned. Now the question is, I would say infrastructure walks on two legs very broadly. One is the policy, the facilitation part, the second is the implementation part. Now, as one of the panelists mentioned, it's good to have a policy, but it should be followed up with adequate details which is transparently available for people to take advantage of.
Okay.
And that's where I think
would you say we as a country are wanting in that area?
I think there is something lacking in that.
Okay.
I was going through some of the literature. I think we talked about a national electricity fund also in the 2008-9 budget, and I find it still taking shape. So I would advocate some sort of timelines for all these activities so that those who want to invest are fully familiar with what the details are. And the second leg on which infrastructure will have to work is the implementation part. As another panelist mentioned, there are projects coming, there are projects approved, but we are not very good at focusing on completing a project when it is taken up within the time given.
Okay.
So there are issues there as well. So of course we are moving forward, but it's a question of now taking advantage of all this facilitation, including the fund flow which has been facilitated now, and also a question of bringing in the required confidence levels. Probably there something more would still need to be done, and some more focused action would be required if the private sector is to be really motivated to take up projects.
So one of the major impediments to public-private partnerships is the non-bankability of many projects for various reasons, because of risks that are inherent in the project. How do you think we can fix this? Is it all a question of land? Is it a question of execution? Is it a question of regulation?
Actually, I think a lot has been done. I think the previous answer is correct. A lot has been done. And there's the frameworks are in place. We can make those things work. The point at which I disagree is the point on the delivery of the projects.
Okay.
They're always late. This is the perception there is. The contracting community is not capable of taking up the challenge. Actually, in my time here in India, I see that you can build anything here. And you can build it very quickly, and you can build it to the correct quality as long as the building blocks are in place to allow you to do that. What happens is you can't carry out that construction as you intended to do it, because there's always some impediment in the way, and that takes us directly back to the land issues and the environmental issues and all those problems. And if you look at the roads, other sectors are even worse. But if you look at the roads, yes, the commitment's made. You will have access to 80% of the land. Say this is one of the terms. And on the day, yes, maybe that is on paper true.
Okay.
But the reality in the field is somewhat different to that. Because when you actually come to occupy that land, you find that the landowners have been compensated in line with government guidelines.
Which is 10% in the case of a pipeline.
Absolutely, yeah. Maybe. Sometimes they haven't yet been compensated.
Okay.
But that is not acceptable to them.
Okay.
The government has done its bit because it has addressed that problem, and it is said, yes, we were going to pay you.
Okay.
But for the contractor to get the access to that land, something else has to be done.
Okay.
And so you end up with the developer or the contractor having to either say to the government, I'm sorry, but you haven't fulfilled your obligations, in which case you're already running into trouble, because it will take you a long time to sort that out with the government, and in the meantime all of your plant and everything is standing, or you go and sort it out yourselves with the landowners.
Which is going to cost you money.
Which is going to cost you money. And so in the end, if you really want to keep things moving, and it's your money that's being delayed as well, then of course you have to go and sort out the issue yourself. But there will be occasions where you can't do that. So I think it's really in the implementation of things. If you're going to say yes, you have 80% free and unencumbered access, then it should genuinely be 80% free and unencumbered access.
Right, Mr. S.K. Goel, that seems to be a contentious issue in the nub of many of the arguments made by private developers, that land is a big crisis in India. We have a national crisis. We are unable to acquire land, we are unable to guarantee land, we are unable to protect the interests of farmers, we are unable to protect the interests of large corporates. It's not even as though one is gaining at the cost of the other. We seem to have reached a stalemate between infrastructure development, growth and land rights. How do we break the stalemate?
Look at various forums, we have been discussing with the government, and government, I believe, has already prepared some draft guidelines to bring a comprehensive legislation on the land acquisition. This is very important part. I agree with the project developers and the problem they face due to the flaws into this. Now land acquisition policy should be insulated from the court cases, from any other hindrance, Now today we find some of the projects in the road particularly. Out of 32 kilometer stretch, 2 kilometer only remaining because of some land social issue, some agitation or some court cases, stay orders. So the national land acquisition policy should insulate developers and projects from all these kind of the things. This is the responsibility of the government, and I believe that government will soon bring this draft resolution which they have prepared into a complete form. It is under the discussion stage. Some fine tuning is going on, and law ministry and all the so many ministries are involved into finalization of this. But the only answer is this particular act, Land Acquisition Act, Comprehensive Act, which solves all this kind of problem. I think project developers will find it much comfortable to complete the project well on time.
Mr. Loya, I'm going to take one word Mr. Goel said, which is that insulate developers from land risk. Clearly the other side of the coin is to insulate farmers from developmental risk, if I were to call it that.
What I would say, that make them partners. And that is what...
Frankly, is that easier said than done? We've heard this many times.
Yes.
Make them stakeholders in the process. Not so easy to do.
It is not so easy. So nothing is easy, because if it is easy, then
everybody would be doing it.
Everybody would be able to do it. So in Pune, Magarpata, so it is again a society by the farmers, and they have developed it. So if they see their bigger gain, so in all probability, because presently it is you versus me, that you gain at my cost.
It's always
if it is win-win situation, so then they both gain, and if they both gain, then only we can move forward.
Still discussing infrastructure with my special panel. Take a quick break. We'll see you on the other side. I'm about to come to the end of this panel discussion. I'm going to come to each of you for closing remarks. I'm going to start with my extreme right. Mr. Yakub, you've heard of India's famous demographic dividend. So therefore, in theory, we have a huge employable workforce. But almost anybody in industry is going to tell you there is a chronic shortage of skilled manpower in India. Right? We have a lot of people not necessarily skilled in the right skills. As you look to expand in India, how are you going to deal with this manpower situation in India? How do you plan to deal with it?
For us, in the sectors that we are involved in, obviously what we champion as an organization is the exchange of training and grooming of individuals who will basically be able to move into the sectors or the businesses that we indulge or endeavor ourselves into. I believe that one of the reasons why we chose India as a regional base for our operations is the fact that there lies this demographic advantage. You do have a huge populace to look out for, being the most probably a good supply for workforce or labor into the global industry. It will not be just limited to servicing India alone. I believe India's workforce is very much capable of actually extending their services outside of the nation. Today, it is about actually elevating this workforce from their basic knowledge into a level where their competency level most probably will be a little bit higher than what is available, so that not only India as a nation is able to enjoy having this luxury workforce, but the rest of the world will as well be able to actually take on the services of these people.
All right, my next closing remark for Mr. S.K. Loya. Mr. Loya, simple question. Excellent metro in Delhi. Delhi is going to look like an international city very soon. Already looks like an international city. When can the rest of India hope to partake of these joys?
Well, if I take Bangalore would have the first leg of its metro running in few months' time.
Okay.
Mumbai also is planning for its line 1 Warsaw Andheri Ghatkopar to be commissioned in the financial year 2011-12. So you will have something up and coming in 2 cities. Other cities, they are in progress, and by 2013-14 many of these lines will be getting completed. We already have the extension of metro to Noida, Gurgaon, and now Faridabad.
I know everybody is jealous with Delhi. Everybody wants to live here because Delhi seems to get all the goodies before the rest of the country.
Not now, I would say, because the Chennai metro project is costing 14,600 crores.
Okay, and that's
and as far as the progress is concerned, it's on a good progress trajectory.
Okay.
Bangalore, etc., and Kolkata, they are also going on well. So, and in Calcutta, Ministry of Railways has also sanctioned a very huge network of metro rail network. So I think
next couple of years,
something very good is going to happen.
Mr. Goel, question for you. Many private players say that insurance and pension funds should be allowed to invest in infrastructure bonds to a greater degree than they're permitted right now. Will that be the inflection point? Will removing the 15% cap on investment release a huge amount of funds into infrastructure and create a huge push for infrastructure in India?
No, actually, you know, the EFRDA and the ILDA, that regulatory authorities for the insurance companies and provident fund, they are very right in stipulating certain benchmark for the investment.
Okay.
Because this money belongs to general public.
Okay.
You cannot compromise with the safety of this fund, whether it is 15% or whatever it may be. That is why IFCL is now coming out with a new product called credit enhancement.
Okay.
Just to sort out this problem. The thing is, the project developers' bonds don't get a rating beyond BBB.
Okay.
The insurance companies and provident fund can't invest in an instrument rated below AA.
Okay.
By our adding a partial or a full guarantee to these bonds, the bonds rating will go up to AA or AA plus.
Okay.
And that is how we are trying to become bridge between the two. If everything goes well, I think next 3-4 months we will roll out this particular product, which is going to be a historic product in the financing of the infrastructure.
All right, Dr. Ramchandran, my closing question to you. We keep talking about the urban-rural divide, about inclusion. Inclusion has become the big buzzword this year. Whenever we talk of infrastructure, there is an implicit understanding that it's infrastructure for urban centers. Big roads, big dams, big electricity projects. How do we bridge this rural-urban divide? How do we make infrastructure truly inclusive?
All through our planning process, we have focused on the rural areas.
Okay.
So I personally I would think after working in the urban sector, there has been substantial amount of investment which has taken place in the rural areas. But it's a fact of life today that there is more employment in the cities, there is more GDP generation.
And we are a more vocal bunch who live in the cities. We have
That's
access
right.
to media and we are loud about our demands.
And we have a huge rural area also. So it's not something like very small city state where everything can be much more focused.
Okay.
But there has been enough investment. But this realization that we need to invest in our cities, that did not come about till about 4 or 5 years back. And if most of our tax revenue, most of our GDP, most of our employment and most of our economic activities to come from the urban areas, I think it's time we focused on the urban areas.
My last question to Mr. Alwyn Bowden. Many experts feel that the lack of a long-term corporate bond market is one of the key reasons why the infrastructure industry hasn't taken off. Do you think that could be the point of inflection, or that could be the act of inflection?
No, I think we've already passed an inflection point.
Okay.
In that the demand is seen and the mechanisms are being put in place. The corporate bond market, yes, okay, this is an issue that needs to be resolved and will be resolved, but is not an underlying issue that is preventing us from developing our infrastructure today. So yes, when we scale up, we'll need to resolve that, but today's problems lie elsewhere.
All right, with that brings me to the end of this panel discussion. Gentlemen, thank you very much for participating. It's been a delight hearing your views on the issue of infrastructure. Thank you very much.